Welcome to part 2. I'm now going to draw a stencil on my kiln shelf of the size that I want for the base of my cup, which is going to be about 2/3 the size of the actual cup. I want it to be nice and sturdy, big, and resilient to being knocked over, especially after we add all of our glass attachments. So before we get started, I have this handle centered on this rod, so I'm actually going to pull it down to the table. This is 12mm milky blue Chinese glass. And what I'm going to do is, just like I've done before, I'm just going to pack a ton of heat and move it around in a circle until I get all the way around. I'm not doing a semicircle this time, we're going all the way around. I'm going to be finishing this off camera as my phone shut off because it got too hot. We have the main body of the cup, and now we're going to attach the pink arm that we made earlier in the last video. I'm going to be heating up the section of the cup that I want to attach the arm, the first arm of the attachment to. So what I'm doing is I'm going to heat up the spot I'm going to tack and pull from, let it set up, and then I'm going to go in on the other side and add a stringer. Make sure that one side is fully welded on with the correct amount of mass, being enough structural integrity before going back to the other side, and then also melting in the other arm, the original arm that we tacked on. Here I'm going in with the stringer. I am adding glass to the space that there was initially a gap. I needed there to be a little bit of room because I can't have it restricting me from putting my initial tack onto the cups. There's a little bit of space, so I'm filling that in with a stringer. I'll make sure that that weld is nice and strong, and then when it is, I will knock off the punty, or I'm melting it off here, and then I'll go in on the other side and I will make sure that that tack and pull is then flushed out in a nice even weld. Remember to let gravity always do most of the work for you when you can. I'm now taking an L-shaped ruler and I'm going to be making a rectangular shape. I want to make sure it's nice and perfectly square. I want things to be nice and symmetrical. So after I draw up my shape, then I'm going to place down my previously created swirled cane, the orange and purple, and then I'm going to start creating the square shape by adding heat, moving it into a 90-degree angle, letting it set up, moving the next portion into a 90-degree angle until we get all the way around. I'm now adding a clear punty to the finished side of the rectangle, because what I'm going to do is take off the clear punty from the original anchored side, and then I'm going to close my rectangle, and I'm going to melt everything in while also removing some of the excess glass left at the end of my rectangle. I'm going to let the excess glass that is left on the end of my rectangle to fall into and fill in that connection point, and then when it sits completely flush, then I'm going to take the excess off. I don't want to take the excess off in the beginning because I might not have enough to fully round off and close my handle without making a visual distortion. I'm just going in, I'm cleaning it up, making it nice and round, making it look symmetrical to all the other angles on the rectangle. Here I'm just doing some minor adjustments. I just want to make sure that all the right angles on the interior are nice and crisp and clean. Now what we're going to be doing is adding the main body of the cup to the base of the cup. And the way that I'm going to do that is make a clear connection point where I want to set the cup, the main body, to the base. Go in with my hand torch and do a light tack. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust. As you can see, there's a lot of adjusting going on because I want to make it nice and perfect. I want to take my time and really think about the placement. I don't want it to be too far on one side, too far on the other, leaning too far up or leaning too far down. I want it to be the cup to go straight across, but I also want it to be in the center of the base. So as you can see, I'm taking my time and really fussing with it until I am absolutely happy with it. Now that I'm coming in with clear on the other side and attaching the base to the other side of the arm for the main component of the cup. I'm going to then work that new application of clear all the way in until it's fully flush, and then go back to the original side where I originally attached the main body to the base and work that in as well before I adjust the punchy coming off the base of the cup and then bringing it to the handle that I have in my main hand. I did this to give it extra support to make sure that the connection point wasn't too flimsy. You always want your project to have plenty of strength to hold it from falling and smashing into bits on the ground. So here I'm attaching 3 half circles that I've created for the cup. These are embellishment attachments, so they're just purely decorative. What I'm going to do is attach on one side, adjust, make sure it's nice and straight on, and then I'm going to go into the other side with a clear stringer, and I'm going to go ahead and work that in to the surface of the cup, making sure that the clear that you have just added to stabilize that ring is fully melted in before going back to the first application of the ring, so the original point where you tacked, to melt that in fully. I'm now coming in with a stack of 3 dots. These dots are descending in height from big, middle, and small. I'm going to put 1 on each ring on both sides, so 6 dots all together. I make these all at the same time to make sure that the largest dot are the same size on both sides, middle, and smallest dot. There is a desire for symmetry in my work. I happen to like it a lot, and the way that I do that is I make the components together to make sure that they all stay the same size. Here I'm just restabilizing that arm. I want to make sure it's nice and hot and worked in. I don't want any cracks. One issue that can come up is when you prefabricate all symmetrical pieces is sometimes they don't actually fit together. So what I've had to do is take a very small portion of glass, added it to the end of that yellow ring, and then melted it back into a ball to make sure that it's small enough to fit within the boundaries of the previously stacked 2 pieces. So sometimes you'll have to make components on the fly. So here's me deciding where I want to put my handle, and once I decide, I'm going to put it back in the kiln, let everything reheat, then I'm going to bring it back out, and then I'm going to attach it. I already have a clear nub on the back side of this handle, and I'm going to use that as my first point to anchor the handle onto the cup. I'm going to adjust it to where I want, and then I'm going to come in with clear on the second point of contact, melt that in as fast as I can, as quickly as I can, doing a very small amount, and then I'll go back in and melt in the original anchor point, and then add 2 more subsequent anchor points. So each part of the handle is anchored to the cup. The last two anchors are going to be two very thick and long pieces because I want to make sure that the handle is incredibly stable. So off camera, I will go back in and add a little bit more clear to that second anchor point that I made. I just made it very quickly. I wanted to make sure that the cup had enough integrity in its interior and exterior surface tension. So I went ahead and added a little bit more off camera so that both of the first and second anchor points have the same mass. So neither one is going to compromise each other. And now I'm going to come in with a pre-measured piece of clear glass. I'm going to add it from the handle to the pink exterior attachment that is connected to the main body of the cup. So the first 2 points are on the main body of the cup itself, and the second 2 are on the exterior pink attachment of the cup. So there are multiple pieces that this handle is being anchored to, essentially creating multiple points of structural integrity. I want to make sure this thing is as strong as it possibly can be, because as we all know, glass, no matter how strong it is still fragile. Here I'm just melting both connection points in and making sure that the piece of clear is nice and even from one side to the other. Here I've decided I'm going to go ahead and take off the punny mark from the handle that I originally put on there, and I'm going to reshape the end of that handle. Now I'm going in, I'm detaching that extra support arm from the main handle because it is almost time to take this cup off of the handle and finish it up. Here I'm just raking off any excess clear that was left and making sure the cup sits nice and flat before I move to the next point of contact, which is the last thing that we need to disconnect from the cup before it's finished. All right, we're about to finish our last move on this cup. I'm going to get it nice and secure within my grabbers. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull the handle off the base, and then I'm going to go in and clean it up, and it'll be all ready. Remember, when you're pulling glass away, you want to roll it out and away from the object that you're pulling it off of to make sure it actually gets pulled off and not lumped back in. I'm now just making sure that the ring sits nice and flush with the marver. I'm going to go in and do a little bit of micro adjusting to make sure it's nice and stable. Now that I'm happy with it, it's all ready to go and be put back in the kiln into anneal. And here's the finished product, my very first glass mug. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me while I made this cup. I hope it answered some questions you might have had or given you ideas on how to move forward in new projects you're thinking about. All right, thank you so much. Bye.